Lena Voss had learned, a long time ago, that hope was something other people could afford. She stood at the edge of the valley with her boots sinking slightly into the wet grass, watching the crowd below her. 6 packs had gathered for the great mating ceremony. Hundreds of wolves, dressed in their best, moving through the valley like a slow river. Fires burned along the hillsides. Children ran between the legs of the adults. Someone nearby laughed at something, loud and free, the way people laugh when they feel safe. Lena did not feel safe, but she was used to that. She had come because attendance was not optional. Every unmated wolf between 18 and 35 was required to be present. The elders had sent a written notice to every pack dwelling, including the small, worn house at the edge of the Voss land where Lena had lived alone for 4 years. She had folded the notice. She had put it in her pocket. She had come. She did not expect anything. She had stopped expecting things at 17, the year her father was stripped of his rank, and her family name became something people said quietly, like a word that tasted bad. The ceremony went on around her. She watched without joining. Mira, her only real friend, had found her an hour in, and pressed a cup of warm tea into her hands without saying anything, which was the nicest thing anyone could do. "You're doing the face," Mira said. "What face?" "The one where you look like a person who has already decided nothing good is going to happen. I've been right every time." Mira opened her mouth to argue. Then she closed it, because she could not actually find a counterexample. That was the 3rd hour. It happened without warning. One moment Lena was standing at the edge of the crowd, holding her tea, watching a group of young betas near the fire pit. The next moment, something shifted. Not in the air exactly. More like in her, a pull, low and certain, the way gravity feels when you lean too far forward over a ledge. Her wolf, the quiet, tired, buried part of her that she had kept small for years, lifted its head. She followed the pull before she decided to. She moved through the crowd without thinking, stepping around people, not seeing them. She stopped when her feet stopped. She looked up. The Alpha King was already looking at her. Calum Dre stood with 3 members of his High Council to his left. He was not the tallest man in the valley, but he stood the way mountains stand, like the land had arranged itself around him, rather than the other way around. He smelled the bond at the same moment she did. She could see it happen, the very slight change in his face, the recognition. Then it closed. He looked at her for 4 seconds. She counted without meaning to. Then he turned to the eldest council member on his left and said, at full volume, with no lowering of his voice, "An Omega bloodline, disgraced family. I reject the bond." He walked away. Just like that. The crowd nearest to them had gone silent. Then, slowly, the silence spread outward like a stone dropped in still water, and Lena stood in the center of it, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold, while 200 and some wolves looked at her, or looked carefully away from her. She stood there until her legs remembered how to move. Then she walked back to where she had come from. She did not run. She had decided, at 17, that she would never run from something she had not caused. Mira was waiting at the edge of the tree line. She said nothing. She took the cold tea from Lena's hands and replaced it with her own. Lena drank it. They stood in the dark together until the fires below burned low. The next morning, 3 sacred wolves appeared outside Lena's door. She had heard of them, of course. Everyone had. They were part of the oldest stories. White wolves, larger than any natural wolf, said to come from the forests that existed before the packs did. They appeared rarely. They chose rarely. No one fully understood what it meant when they chose, except that it mattered, and that no living creature in 6 packs had the authority to override it. They sat outside her door in the gray early morning light, still, patient, like they had always been there and had simply become visible. Lena looked at them for a long moment, then she went inside and made herself breakfast. By the end of the week there were 7 of them. They followed her to the market. They followed her to the pack elder's office when she went to pay her land tax. They sat outside the door when Mira came to visit and arranged themselves in a loose half-circle around the 2 women when they walked to the river. The largest one, older than the others, with eyes the pale silver color of winter sky, stayed closest to her at all times. It never made a sound. It never needed to. The pack scholars had nothing useful to say. The king's advisors had 3 theories, and two of them contradicted each other. The third one blamed Lena, which was the option they had all been working toward. Calum, from his citadel on the hill, went very still. He was not a man who raged. Rage was loud, and loud was readable, and readable was something enemies could use. What he did instead was call for every archive text on sacred wolf behavior in all 6 territories. He increased the guard rotations around the citadel. He stopped sleeping through the night. He told no one this last part. Rival packs sent formal letters of inquiry. What did it mean that the sacred wolves had gathered around the king's rejected mate? Was the rejection valid under ancient law? Was the bond still active? The law said a king could reject a mate. It said nothing about what happened when the land disagreed with him, because the land had never disagreed with a king before. Calum read every letter. He filed them. He did not reply. He came to the lower market on a gray Thursday morning, alone, except for 2 guards he left at the end of the street. He found Lena examining dried herbs at one of the stalls. The wolves arranged around her noticed him first. None of them moved toward him. They simply turned their silver eyes in his direction and waited. Lena looked up when his shadow fell across the stall. She looked at him the way she might look at weather, noting it, assessing it, not particularly frightened by it. "You could leave," he said. "Go to another territory. I would provide resources and safe escort. You would be under pack protection anywhere you chose to go." She set down the herbs. "I grew up here," she said. "I'll leave when I decide to leave." The largest wolf stepped between them. It did not growl. It simply placed itself in the space between their bodies and stayed there. And Calum, the alpha king of 6 packs, took 1 step back around a wolf. He went back to the citadel. He read more texts. The attack came 11 days later. A rival pack testing the borders. Not a true assault, but a provocation. 3 scouts crossing the boundary line to see what would happen. 3 of the sacred wolves broke their formation around Lena and went to intercept. In the 4-minute gap, an assassin moved. The man got close enough to put a blade near her. He did not get much further than that. The wolves returned. The king arrived 6 minutes after that and found Lena sitting on a low stone wall at the edge of the market with a small cut along her jaw. She was watching the tree line with a calm, focused expression, the kind of expression that belongs to people who have already dealt with the immediate problem and moved on to watching for the next one. He stood in front of her. He did not know what he had expected to find. "You need to come inside the citadel," he said. "For security, it is a practical decision." "I know why you're saying it's practical," she said. 30 said. She came anyway. The wolves came with her. They walked through the citadel gates as if they had always planned to be there, and they settled in the courtyard and did not leave. Lena and Calum ate at opposite ends of the same long table for 12 days. He gave her access to the citadel library because she asked for it. She did not thank him effusively, the way people usually thanked him for things. She simply said good, and walked toward the library, and 2 wolves followed her in. On the 12th night, he came down to the dining room late, and found her still at the table, with a glass of water, and the particular silence of someone who has been thinking hard for a long time. "Why did you really reject the bond?" she said. Not a question exactly, more like she was placing something on the table between them to see how he would handle it. He said nothing. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. She finished her water and went to bed. Mira came to visit on the 14th day, and was briefly astonished to find her best friend living in the Alpha King's citadel, surrounded by ancient wolves, apparently unbothered. "You're not bothered," Mira said. "I'm bothered," Lena said. "I'm just not showing it the way you're expecting. He rejected you in front of everyone." "I know. I was there. And you're just here, in his house, eating at his table." "The wolves made it complicated," Lena said. "And I think I understand why he did it." Mira waited. "He had a mate before. She died." Lena paused. "He announced the bond publicly, at a ceremony exactly like the one where he rejected me. Someone used that information to find her. She died because everyone knew she mattered to him. She was quiet for a moment. He built a rule around it. No more public bonds. No more letting people see what could be used against him. I walked up and he saw what I was going to cost him. And she stopped. He did what he knew how to do." Mira was quiet for a long time. That's either very sad or a very generous way of looking at someone who humiliated you in front of 200 people. It can be both, Lena said. He found her in the library at 2 in the morning, 3 nights later. She was reading a text she had found in the Eastern Archives, very old, the pages fragile at the edges, and she did not look up when he came in. He sat in the chair across from her, which she had not invited him to do, but she did not tell him to leave. After a while, she slid the book across the table to him. She pointed to a line near the bottom of the page. He read it. The sacred wolves do not protect bloodline. They do not protect rank or destiny or ancient right. They protect those the land knows will hold. He did not look up from the page for a long time. Hold, he said, finally. Hold, she said. Not survive, not endure, hold. She paused. There's a difference. Surviving is just not dying. Holding is staying whole, staying yourself, under pressure. He looked at her across the table. In the low light of the library, she looked like someone out of the old stories. Not soft, not gentle, but real. The way old things are real, worn into their true shape. Lena, he said. It was just her name. He had never said it before. He had called her the Omega in front of the council. He had said she and her in a tone that kept her at a safe distance. He said her name now, twice, like it was something he had been holding in his mouth for a while and had finally decided to let out. She looked at him. She held his gaze, which most people did not do, because most people felt the weight of him and looked away. She held it until he held it back, until he stopped reaching for the distance he usually kept between himself and anything that could matter. Outside the library window, the wolves in the courtyard went completely still. 3 days after that, the council called for a decision. Rival pack leaders sent representatives. Under ancient law older than any king currently living, the sacred wolf's protection of a rejected mate was not a symbolic act. It was a statement, and statements from wolves that old required answers. Calum called a summit, not a ceremony, not a declaration, a summit, where every pack leader sat at a long table and looked at him. He stood up. He said, I rejected the bond. I was wrong. Not why, not the history, not the politics or the grief, or the logic he had built around himself, like a wall for 11 years. Just wrong. The room was quiet in the way rooms go quiet when they are not sure what comes next. One of the sacred wolves walked through the open hall doors. It crossed the stone floor, its white paws making no sound at all, and settled beside the empty chair at Calum's left. The chair where she would sit, if she chose to. He came to her room that evening. No guards, no council, no audience. He stood in the doorway, and she stood inside the room, and there was only the length of a threshold between them. He told her about his first mate in a few short sentences. He stopped. He did not reach for more words than he actually had. Then he said, I would like to try again, if you'll allow it. She looked at him for a long time, long enough to be uncomfortable, long enough that he understood she was not going to shorten the uncertainty for him, that if he wanted her, he was going to stand in the not knowing and not flinch. He stood in it. He did not flinch. She said, I'll think about it. She closed the door. Outside in the courtyard, all 11 sacred wolves turned their silver eyes toward the closed door and held still and waited. 3 days later, Lena opened the door herself. He was already there, not in a dramatic way, not waiting on one knee or standing at attention, just present, the way the wolves were present, like something that had made its decision and was no longer performing it. She stepped across the threshold. She did not say yes out loud. She had spent too many years having her words mean less than nothing to people with more power than her. Her body choosing was a louder answer than anything her voice could have made. He looked at her. Something in his face did the thing faces do when they finally stop holding a shape that costs too much. The wolves parted around them. They walked through together. For the first time in any history that anyone could find written down anywhere, the sacred wolves walked beside 2 people at once. Not ahead, not behind, not surrounding, beside, the way old friends walk, the way equals walk. The valley below the citadel was quiet and wide and green, and above it, the sky was the pale gold color of early morning, the particular light that belongs to days that are beginning rather than ending. Lena did not think about hope. She had something better than hope now. She had already made her choice.